Alright, so we are on our second part here of the our third part of the Punic Wars, because last week we covered the beginning of the second Punic War. So, is this going to load? But that included the Battle of Lake Trasimene, Trevia River, just a bunch of Hannibal kicking the Romans' butt. Um, so the Romans really weren't in a great state, as we're going to see. So the first thing they do after the destruction at Lake Trasimene is um, elect a dictator, Quintus Fabius Maximus, who is going to be known as Quintus Fabius Maximus Cunctator, which means the delayer. This is in 217. So his plan was to avoid all military conflict with Hannibal. And this becomes known as Fabian tactics, where it's like you can't defeat your enemies, so you're just going to avoid all contact with them. But this was really appalling to the Romans because, as you know, the Romans were a very strong military culture. The idea of not fighting in a war was very appalling to them. Um, so they really just didn't really like what Fabius was doing. And there's the Battle of Ager Falernus, where the Romans almost defeat the Carthaginians by trapping them in this area, but the Carthaginians were able to distract the Romans and escape. So the Romans nearly destroyed the Carthaginian army in turn, but the Carthaginians just outplayed them. Fabius returned to Rome, and the tribunes were very angry with him. So they elevated Minucius to the co-dictatorship, which was a very unprecedented and insulting move to Fabius. And this really made the dictatorship ineffective because the whole point of a Roman dictatorship is to give someone absolute authority to make decisions in a wartime. But in the end, there was no major defeats in 217 BC. But Fabius is replaced by the consuls Varro and Paulus, just because the Romans, like, hey, we didn't lose anything yet, but it's just we're not fighting, so that's kind of lame. So that's why they replaced Fabius. So, as you probably have heard of, there's the Battle of Cannae, which is the greatest military disaster in Roman history. So the consuls disagreed on how to fight. So when there's two consuls at the same battle site, the army is either divided or one consul gets control every other day. So the Romans did outnumber the Carthaginians at Cannae, 2-1. Paulus wanted to wait since he didn't want to be overrun by the field cavalry, because that was happening a lot, where the cavalry would just decimate the Roman army. But Varro wanted to rush immediately since the Romans outnumbered the Carthaginians. And unfortunately for the Romans, it was Varro's day at the start of the battle, and the Carthaginians ended up, as you can see up here, they ended up outflanking the Romans, so that was pretty bad. And this outflanking led to 50 to 70,000 Romans dying, depending on your source. There were 29 military tribunes and nearly 90 senators killed. Paulus decided to, instead of to face the insulting return to Rome, he would die on the field, but Varro didn't care about such honor and he fled. But as you could possibly think, oh, you just destroyed 50,000 soldiers, why not move to take Rome? Well, Hannibal didn't. We don't know why he didn't, but some people think he thought he could just win the war by ransacking the countryside, taking other cities, or because he just didn't have enough forces to take Rome directly, which it was probably the latter. And this battle really closes the first stage of the Second Punic War, but the battle also could have easily led to the collapse of Rome as we know it. So, as we discussed last week, there were other fronts in the Second Punic War, so we're going to take a detour away from Italy to talk about the other ones. So after Cannae, the Senate took more control since they needed a quick and coherent policy. The war was a great turnover of the military class due to necessity, and it made a merit-based elite. It didn't get rid of the elite, but it was, are you a competent commander, not are you from this great family. It was more of a meritocracy. Hiero of Syracuse, who we talked about in the First Punic War, a great ally to Rome, he died, and his grandson, who was much more open to allying with the Carthaginians, took control, and they took actions against Rome, and they ended up allying with Carthage. But the Syracusans, who were very loyal to Rome, rose up and killed Hiero's grandson. But the Carthaginians invaded, and Sicily was completely controlled by Carthage, which was something the Barca brothers wanted to do since their father was humiliated when Carthage lost the First Punic War. Well, his father, Hasdrubal, was just kind of vibing in Sicily, doing his own thing. Um, so Spain was a near stalemate between Hasdrubal Grisgo and the Scipiones for about 5 years, with some minor Roman victories. But the Scipiones, which, as you probably heard of, Scipio Africanus, the Scipiones were his father and his uncle. But the Scipiones were defeated in 211 at the Battle of the Upper Bitus. Both of them were killed in action, so this was a very crushing defeat for the Romans in Spain. And then we moved to Sicily. So the Carthaginians, as we just said, had complete control over Sicily. But the consul Marcus Claudius Marcellus ordered a siege of Syracuse in 213 BC using some recruited legionaries and Cannae survivors. You may have heard of this dude, Archimedes, the brilliant inventor man with the whole like laser beam and all that. He helped the Syracusans defend the city against Rome. But Rome eventually scaled the outer walls and took most of the city, but had to besiege the inner citadel. And finally, in 211, Marcellus took Syracuse, and he let his men loose, sacking the city, which led to Archimedes' death. The Romans were even appalled at this. It's like, oh, you shouldn't have destroyed Syracuse. They were our allies. But they're like, yeah, but we also took Sicily back, so we don't really care too much what you did. So while the Punic War was going on, the Second Punic War was going on, there was also the Macedonian Front, or it's also known as the First Macedonian War. So during the Second Punic War, Philip V of Macedon allied with Carthage and tried to seize Roman protectorates and naval bases in Illyria and invade Italy. So Illyria is that western coast of the Balkans along the Adriatic Sea. And this was effectively just a proxy war between Rome and Carthage. It was basically a 10-year-long series of skirmishes. The Romans allied with the Aetolian League, which were small city-states next to Macedon who feared Macedon's growing power and didn't want to be conquered by them. And the Aetolian League, under the command of Marcus Valerius Laevinus, twice defeated Philip at Lamia in 209 BC. In 206 BC, the Aetolians negotiated their own peace with Philip, and the Romans didn't really take this too well, but they couldn't really do anything about it. But soon after, in 205, Sempronius Tudianus negotiated a Macedonian-Roman peace, closing this First Macedonian War. So we'll go back to Italy. After the Battle of Cannae, Capua defected to Carthage, but Hannibal suspected, we just crushed the Roman army, a lot of these other cities are going to defect to us. But only Capua really did, and this kind of threw Hannibal off. And it also threw the Capuans off. Capua thought, we'll be the first of many cities to go to Hannibal, and we'll liberate ourselves from Rome. But that didn't happen. In 212, Hannibal took control of the city of Tarentum. The Romans soon attacked Capua, giving them an initiative against Hannibal, because now the Romans were taking the offensive. They're fighting on their terms. And they took Capua. In 211 BC, Hannibal marches within 2 miles of the city of Rome, trying to distract the Romans. But the Romans knew Hannibal only has a force of a couple tens of thousands, so not enough to breach the city walls and take Rome. So they only sent a small platoon from Capua to investigate what was going on and reinforce the city. So they didn't take Hannibal's bait. Hannibal wanted to meet them outside of Rome and destroy him in another decisive battle, but it didn't happen. So the war fell into a lot of territory swapping in Italy, where there were just battles going. Hannibal would win a small one, the Romans would win a small one. Nothing major, no major battles like Cannae, Trasimene, the Trebia River, nothing like that. So it's just going on a sort of stalemate for 5 years. We're going to go back to Spain again now. We're kind of flipping between fronts because everything's kind of going on at the same time as you would expect in a war. So after the Scipiones lost, no one wanted to lead the army in, let's just say in Spain, not Italy. So no one wanted to lead the army in Spain. Scipio Africanus took this task at 25 years old. The Senate was like, oh, we don't really want you to command, but no one else wants to. And Scipio Africanus had a lot of charisma. He was smart, and they were like, okay, I guess we'll give you the job. And he arrived in Spain in 210 BC. In 209, Scipio Africanus took a very bold approach to his strategy here, and he attacked the Carthaginian capital in Spain of New Carthage, and he did it pretty quickly. He knew the army was about a couple days to a week out from the city, so he needed to do it really fast. So after besieging it for a day, he heard that the lagoon next to the city had a rising and lowering tide, so he used that to his advantage and attacked the city from its sea walls at night. And then what he did here, which was a really smart idea, was he released the Spanish hostages that were taken by Carthage, and he gained a lot of Spanish allies for doing this. And in 206 BC, Scipio and Hasdrubal Grisgo met at Ilipa, where Scipio Africanus outmaneuvered the Carthaginians after not fighting for days. So if we remember, way back at the Battle of the Trebia River here, the Carthaginians charged at the Romans early in the morning to allow them not to get ready for battle. And Scipio Africanus copied this Carthaginian strategy, where basically he just charged at the Romans, or charged at the Carthaginians rather, in the early morning, not allowing them to get ready. And he changed the way his army was set up, so when he charged, the Carthaginians were unprepared for that strategy, and he pretty much defeated them. It would have been an all-out rout, except it started raining, so his cavalry was more ineffective than he had hoped. But it was a very great victory for the Romans at Ilipa. So now the war is really coming to a close. The tides have turned to Rome's favor. Hasdrubal Barca left Spain after defeats against Scipio, and he went to link up with Hannibal in Italy. The Romans, led by Gaius Claudius Nero, defeated and killed Hasdrubal Barca at the Battle of the Metaurus River. So the hope of the Carthaginians was that Hasdrubal and Hannibal would link up to make a force of 70,000 men, which would be incredibly overwhelming for the Romans. But the Romans were able to defeat Hasdrubal in isolation at Metaurus and really secured a victory here. So in 205, Scipio Africanus returned to Rome and convinced the Senate to allow an invasion of North Africa, which would end the war effectively. The Senate did allow him to invade North Africa. The Romans were able to negotiate an alliance with the Numidian king Massinissa. So the Numidian cavalry was a very formidable part of the Carthaginian army. The cavalry was just decimating the Romans, and then the Romans getting the Numidians on their side was a really great help for them. So in 203, he was in Africa, and he laid siege to the city of Utica and destroyed most of the Carthaginian army there in a surprise attack. And after this battle, Hannibal was recalled, which was very disappointing for him. He was in Italy rather, for 16 years, and nothing happened of that. He destroyed the Romans thrice, and he got nothing out of it. He had to go back home, which is very sad. And now we come to the Battle of Zama. So instead of marching on Carthage directly, Scipio Africanus marched inland. Hannibal and Scipio met at Zama in 202 BC. Hannibal tried to negotiate a final peace, but Scipio said no. And the two men, it said, had very great respect for one another as brilliant strategists, but they knew it would be the culmination of the war right here. Massiniss's cavalry and the experienced Romans ended up crushing the Carthaginians. It almost was an all-out rout, but Hannibal's veterans were able to stand firm. Rome won this battle, and with it, the Second Punic War. The terms of peace were very strict on Carthage. No army, no navy. If they wanted permission for military engagements for defense only, they needed Rome to say you can defend yourselves. A large sum of money needed to be paid, and Numidia was made into an independent kingdom with Massinissa as its king. But the Roman population declined 17% during this war, so that could be seen as pretty bad. But they also had uncontested control of the Mediterranean, leading to their inevitable growth into an expansive empire. Scipio Africanus led to a greater development in this cult of personality in Roman politics. I don't know if you were at Cassidy, my colloquia at convention, but we talk a lot about this cult of personality aspect, where now it's like big figures. It's going to be Scipio Africanus, the Gracchi, Caesar, Sulla, Marius, Augustus, all these big names, and that's really changing Roman politics from the humble farmer Cincinnatus, who was dictator for a few days and went to go farm, into these big grandiose figures. So this is now Rome after the Second Punic War. They've expanded out from their local area into Spain, and we're really going to start seeing next week we're going to get into the Macedonian Wars. We're going to take control of Greece, so it's becoming the Roman Empire very quickly. My source was the History of Rome podcast from this YouTube video here. Do you have any questions? I will take this silence as a no.